Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Wilbur Talks FPL, where we talk everything FPL and the Premier League in general. We're back for episode 21, getting up to that magical quarter of a century that we'll hopefully hit by the end of the season. But I am back again, of course, as the host, and I'm joined just with Charlie this week. Sam might not be around for a few weeks, but we'll try and work out with him. Lots of Champions League and stuff going around. Obviously, me and Charlie don't have to really deal with Champions League currently. But that's a different issue. But how are you today, Charlie?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, hopefully that's still on the cards, at least for my team. Maybe not yours, but we'll see.
Well, not for this season, shall we say, but you never know next season what could happen. Well, I'm hoping United avoid European competition entirely, so I don't have to deal with that kind of issues, but I'm sure we'll get onto that one. But yeah, pretty much the same format as we always do, guys. So we're going to have a look back at the last few weeks. We did not record last week because it was kind of mid-game week. There was a lot of midweek games in that game week, so it's quite difficult to kind of do one during the midweek. I might test Charlie with a little bit of an Arsenal-themed quiz. That's a short one in the middle. And then we'll look forward as we always do. So I think starting there, Charlie, we're going to look back at the last 2 weeks. So starting on game week 33, how did your game week 33 go?
Yeah, it is a bit of a stretch going back that far, even though it's only technically a week or two. It's all the games in between, and like you say, the midweek games. It's a bit funny, but So let me just bring up my actual score here so I can see.
I'm sure you're doing all right. You're always up there somewhere. You always say you've got a half decent score, and we're about that's miles better than what we have.
But, relatively. But so I ended on 58 in 33. That was under the average. The average was 61. And I also took a -4 as well that week, which didn't quite pay off. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the worst week, but it wasn't the best week. Salah and Saka being my main point scorers. Salah got 9. That was week. Salah got 19 points. Saka ended up with 10. And I captained Kane, who didn't get anything. So a bit disappointing from that point of view. But yeah, like we say, it's things in perspective. It's not an awful week, but would like to be doing a bit better to push on. And then this week just gone, or we're still kind of in the middle of it because we were recording before the Chelsea United game. So I'm currently on 48 points. I've used my free hit this week. We've been talking for a while about how I'm kind of quite flexible about when I'll use that free hit, and it just felt like I was looking at how my team was set up and just which weeks I would actually kind of make the most changes to actually use that free hit effectively, and on reflection, it seemed this week made the most sense because there was an opportunity to jump on the Chelsea assets and also Man City in particular, where which didn't quite work out in the end because I don't think anyone saw Gabriel Jesus scoring 4 goals. Certainly a high-scoring game, but I don't think anyone saw all those goals coming from mostly one player. So yeah, I think there was enough an opportunity there. So I'm still kind of happy with the fact that I played my free hit when I did, even though it's maybe not had quite as much of an effect as I'd want. Although I was working out earlier, so I am still, I think, 15 points ahead, or around about 15 points ahead of what my normal team would have done. So that's a bit of a sort of saving grace of at least I'm ahead of that, and we're still with the Chelsea assets to go. So yeah, again, it's similar to the week before really. So it's not amazing, but also not the worst. So I don't mind it really.
Rank wise now, then currently like live.
So my rank has taken a bit of a tumble.
Oh dear.
Not gonna lie. I'm sat at 37k. So yeah, not quite the dizzy heights of I was sitting around 10k, floating between 10 and 20k for a long while. Now down to 37. But yeah, I don't really know. I think it just kind of has stagnated a little bit, just because I think my team's quite templatey sort of, and obviously there is this kind of the downside of people who save their wild cards like you did and using them now and using some of these chips now, and obviously a lot of people will be using the bench boost as well in 36. I think that's all playing a part in it as well, but yeah, we'll see what we can do. Maybe get a couple of differentials. Obviously it was a bit easier this week for differentials because I'm on the free hit, so I had kind of complete free choice. So I'm quite pleased with how that turned out. So, for example, I took Trent out and put Robertson in for the free hit, which I felt was a reasonable money saver, but also on a one-off game, equally as likely to get points. And obviously that worked out this week. Similarly, trying to go, and it didn't quite work out, but going for Jota over Salah. Salah obviously only ended up with an assist, and Jota didn't get anything. So it's only 3 points difference between the two. When you compare the money, I think that was again all reasonable differentials to go for. So maybe a couple of those lined up for the last couple of game weeks, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I agree definitely with what you said, because I think a lot of the players that had played the wildcard kind of around your kind of, because didn't you play it about, it was mid-20s, wasn't that, 27, 28 or something like that?
Yeah, I think it was about 27-ish, 27 or 28.
Yeah, so I think at that point, obviously, all you guys kind of got a boost who did the wildcards then, and they're kind of seeing a bit of the after effects of it going the other way now. But it's just trying to ride out that period, isn't it, and do it the best you can compared to people using other chips, like you mentioned with myself. But yeah, I remember, was there like 1 week that you managed to get into like 2 or 3k? It was like ridiculous that you just kept climbing, like for a few weeks, you just kept going mad. And you got to about 2 or 3k, I think, at one stage. But
yeah, looking, top 4k was about the highest I got after a given week. I think like midweek, whilst the game week was still active, I think I'd maybe a little bit higher. But yeah, in terms of the end of the game week scores, 3.8k was the highest I've got so far. Yeah, oh, actually, no, sorry, I take that back. I'm underselling myself. 2,000, you can see there. Game week 18, 2,000. Let's go back to that.
Yeah, I felt like it was somewhere at some point. And just a point, we're recording during the Man City Champions League game, and Man City have taken the lead after 2 minutes. So great start for them there. Not Gabriel Jesus this time. Those 4 goals. I think you had Sterling on your free hit as well, didn't you? And I got Sterling on the wild card. Did you watch the highlights of that game? Because literally, the 3 of those Jesus goals could have easily been Sterling's goals. It was like, I think 2 of them were crosses that like just went over Sterling, and then I'm pretty unconfirmed, but if Jesus wasn't on a hat trick, I wouldn't have been surprised if Sterling took the penalty. I think it would have been Sterling or KDB probably between those two who would have taken it. But
yeah, agreed. I don't think since Aguero we haven't really seen one player in the Man City side take basically all the points in any given game week. It tends to be shared around quite a lot, but I think it's just the end of what happens when they've got a particular focal point in the team. So flashing forward to when they get Haaland for next year, maybe. Yeah,
I think that'll be a bit different. There seem to be, like you said, it could be anyone, but I feel like there's certain explosive players that can get a hat trick, like a Jesus or a Sterling. Rather, like, I've never seen Foden go and hit a hat trick. Obviously, he's younger than the others, but I think there's certain explosive ones, so that's why I liked the look of Sterling, which obviously you agreed with on yours as well. But if we look at my game weeks then, so both of the weeks, including a chip usage, which it's been exciting, shall we say. So game week 33, I was on free hit. I was advised by Charlie and Sam not to go for triple Man United, but I couldn't resist. Luckily, I captained the right one by captaining Ronaldo. I did also have Bruno and Telles there as well. Telles didn't go too bad because he didn't actually play the Liverpool game and he got an assist in the other game, so can't complain too much about that. So I got 83 points. Ronaldo definitely carrying with 34, and then only really Target and Shah at the back, and Schmeichel as well getting clean sheets. So outside of Ronaldo, there was no attacking returns in that free hit. I didn't have Salah, which didn't help fantastically, but still managed to get a decent rank increase. I think I went up about 55k in the ranks in that week, which is obviously a lot easier with the kind of rank I'm around. That got me back within the 300k, and currently I'm 371k. So getting slowly up. I was looking back at my overall rank throughout the season. The highest I've ever been this season, not spectacular, is 177k. So my goal for the rest of the season is trying to get better than that. That's the new benchmark I've set myself. So if we just move on to 34. So I'm currently on 53 points. having played the wild card this week, I was pretty set a lot of the week, I think, with my wild card, to be fair. I think there was 3 or 4 positions I just kept changing between, so we'll just go through them all because I think it'll be relevant going forward as well, because especially in game week 36, most of these players are going to have to play with my bench boost. So I went for Schmeichel and Foster as the goalkeepers. I didn't see much better options outside of those two. You could argue going with someone else instead of Schmeichel, but Foster was kind of a lock just for the value, and I'd rather just spend money elsewhere. Backline, Trent was always going to be in there. Cancelo was always going to be in there. I had the debate between Reece James and Alonso. Luckily, I went for Alonso. I'm not going to say that was kind of tactical thinking. It was basically I needed more money somewhere else, so I went for Alonso. But one of the places I did put the money into was to get Laporte, because I think I had Matty Cash there and I put him up to Laporte. And I just needed like a 4.5 defender. I was between an Arsenal defender because they're... Well, yeah, I was looking at Arsenal and their game week 34 and 35 fixtures weren't great, but then the double was slightly better compared to Spurs, who had decent fixtures 34, 35, and then their double game week wasn't great. So I ended up going with Spurs, getting lucky with Emerson Royale, getting 8 points. Like, I was thinking this could really backfire, and I can see him getting dropped at some point, but for the short term, it worked for me there. In midfield, double Chelsea, which hasn't worked so far, but obviously Mount, Havertz still to play, Havertz captain. Salah as expected, Dewsbury all cheap on the bench, and then the punt on Sterling, as we just mentioned. I quite liked having that Sterling option there because I think he's going to play the Leeds game as well. I've seen the Champions League lineup today. He's not in the starting lineup, so he's on the bench. So I think there's a decent chance he plays that Leeds away, and then I think probably for 36 he might go. But it was always going to be a 2-week punt. If not, it might go a bit further, but we'll see what the rotation is like from Pep. And I only played Pookie this week with Nketiah and Watkins on the bench, thinking of future game weeks. Nketiah was one of those ones that was kind of undecided on if I should go with him, but obviously from the United game it looks like he's playing, but we'll see if he stays in there. What are your thoughts on that one, Charlie, if he's going to stay? I know I mentioned it to you before, but could be anyone.
It's difficult to say. I think Arteta does definitely have a preference for keeping the same lineup where he can, and tries to reward good form. And I think, obviously, there was the game he scored, was it 2 goals, and he kept him in. And I remember a similar thing happening with Martinelli when Martinelli came into the team. It was Smith Rowe getting injured. Martinelli came in and started scoring and just stayed in the team, even though Smith Rowe had previously been our top scorer. So, Arteta does have this preference for leaving them in if they're playing well. So at the moment, I don't see a reason why he would drop Nketiah. And especially with the fact that Lacazette can't really finish a game at all, even just 90 minutes. He usually comes off around 60, 70 minutes anyway. I think regardless, you're going to get some kind of appearance points from him at least. So bench boost wise, that's always going to be useful for the 36 as well.
Yeah, in my mind for 36, I was like happy with him playing one game and coming off the bench for another one. That was kind of my thinking, but obviously we'll see how it goes. If he keeps up the next few games, he might play them both, which would be ideal. And then I'm hoping I could just forget about the front line. I can just play Pookie, Watkins, and Nketiah in that bench boost, and not really have to worry about it too much, and make some tweaks in midfield is the ideal place I'm looking at it, because I don't really want Havertz and Mount going forward either, because I'm not convinced they're going to both play in the double both games.
I also think at Nketiah's price as well, I don't think you're going to find much better at around that or less. So, yeah, definitely makes sense for me. Yeah,
it was literally Nketiah or a Watford striker. So it's like, you know you're scraping the barrel when it's got to that point. You're not tempted by Gabriel Jesus because he's literally just scored again for Man City to make it 2-0. That was more a topical question. I'm not really expecting you to take that one seriously.
I mean, he has been someone that's been on our radar previously earlier in the season when he was getting a run on the right and doing well. I think especially at this point with the Champions League, it looks like they're going to be going through. So I think there's just a bit too much rotation worry. That's what I liked about getting them in on the free hit was going with Sterling and just going triple City on the free hit, is that you can kind of week to week you can probably roughly predict the team based on the previous team and if there's been any midweek games, barring a few couple of changes and injuries and so on. But for an extended period, it's much more difficult.
We shall see. It's difficult to pick those holes from the City lads, and I don't think anyone can never say they're going to be an expert getting it at the right time. But that's why Sterling's in here for a few weeks to see if I can't avoid the hole like last time. Do you remember the last time I had Sterling in my team, Charlie? What happened?
I don't, to be honest.
I had him in my team, I think, for 3 game weeks instead of Salah, and then the week I transferred him out for Salah, he scored a hat-trick. So it's difficult, and I did exactly the same with Ronaldo as well earlier in the season. It was that Tottenham game. I was like, I need Kane in for the long run. I'll put Kane in for Ronaldo. Ronaldo scored 3, and then Kane scored 1 from a penalty. Luckily on the free hit I got Ronaldo's hat trick back, so now I'm looking for Sterling's hat trick at some point, but we never know. I was going to touch on Sam's team as how he's doing. I know the update he gave us the other day, Charlie, that he's doing a lot better with it against his rivals in the Family League. So he got 80 points in game week 33. I was just looking at it, and his spread of points is quite good, to be fair. He's got like Saka, Salah, even Dennis and Vegas were contributing at this point. Actually, he's flying with all the returns. Double Liverpool defence and Pope, so he got 80 points in 33. And in 34 he's doing well as well. He's got 65 with a -4. He's got Saka again. It's funny, he's just getting all the Vegas points. He has looked pretty decent since the new manager has taken over. And back-to-back 10-pointers from Nick Pope. Let me know. Doing well there. So he's actually bang level with me now in the Wilbur Games Premier League. So squeaky bum time there. Yeah, he's made up 12 points on me this week to bring it level, but I think I've got the extra player on him. Who's he got to play? He's got Alonso and Havertz to play. I've got Mount as well, and I've got Havertz captain, so should have a few points buffer on him going into the final few weeks of the season. I'll have to give him updates on the cup competitions from next week because it's our little league cup that'll be starting as well. I'm waiting for one of us 3 to be against each other just to have the added competition. I'm hoping it's game week 36 against you so I can just bench boost you out of here. That's the idea. But if we move on to the games from the most recent week, and we're not going to go back to 33, that's overkill I think there. And I will make the admission here that I've been away the last few days. If any game was 0-0, I've not watched the highlights. That was my kind of limiting some games out of there. But I'll let you start from the top, Charlie, as I'm sure you'll enjoy doing. I think we might both disagree on one decision in there, but probably not with the outcome.
Yeah, I think. To be fair, I do think there were some. I think there were questionable calls that went both ways, to be honest. And like you say, I think the overall outcome was probably the right one anyway. So take it, and it's easy to say that when you come out with the win anyway. But yeah, I think Arsenal did deserve that. I definitely felt like United were going to score. That's why I put Ronaldo in on my free hit. I felt like it was quite likely, to be honest, that he would score against us. Our defence is a bit makeshift at the moment. But also that particularly because of the state Man United's defence is at the moment, and just the team in general, really, with a lot of the issues going on. I think, I felt fairly confident going into that game, and so it turned out. I thought, particularly attacking wise, Arsenal did look very good, and sometimes a bit too gung ho. There were some situations, like for example, even in the first goal, Nuno Tavares being the one putting in the ball in the back of the net when he's our left back is a little bit concerning. But that's just kind of what he does. That's what we come to expect from him if he's playing. So all in all, obviously very happy that we've continued that, picking up the 2 wins against Chelsea and then your lot as well. So putting ourselves back in contention, or in pole position, I guess you might say, for 4th place.
Yeah, you're definitely big favourites for me. I think I said it before the United game as well. But touching on that, I think it's just, it's same old for United, because I feel like, especially your first 2 goals, just came from defensive errors. So if they could sort those defensive errors out, they might have something to build on. And you could argue it should have been 2-2 at one stage, and then it could have completely changed the game. But same old, really. Expected at this point. And the ideal solution is to finish 8th, no European competition, and then we can just have a nice, clean schedule to try and build on from there. Well, I can see that we're going to finish 7th and get in the Blooming Conference League. I won't mind Europa as much because at least you can qualify from the Champions League from it. But we shall see and see what the new manager brings us. But going back to what I was saying, I think you're definitely favourites. Now, have you got, is it 2 points, 4 points? Can't remember what the actual lead is you've got over Spurs now. Because I think you've finally played the same amount of games, haven't you?
Yeah, same amount of games, 2 points ahead.
I thought it was 2 points. I was getting confused then. But the big thing I think you've got advantage is that Spurs have got to go to Liverpool still. So that's the big one for me. And I think outside of that, I think Arsenal and Spurs will be favourite for every other game. But obviously, either of you can trip up in most of the games. And I think I made the point before. Realistically, I think Spurs have got to beat you in that derby to have any chance of getting there, So that plays into your hands because you can play for a draw in that game. But things can change, but obviously we're running out of weeks, so getting points on the board is important at this stage.
I think also critically that game against Liverpool that Spurs are playing is the one before the game we play against them. So I think, if that goes as expected with the Liverpool win, you imagine Liverpool still fighting for the title at that point. They're not going to be slacking at all in that game. So yeah, you'd hope that would be good for Arsenal's chances, just get more of a morale boost for Arsenal going into that game. And for example, with our next game is against West Ham, who will be in between their 2 Europa games. So again, that's quite a nice position to come in from heading into that derby.
Yeah, I was looking at that earlier, to be fair, because you've got Leeds the game before, which, depending on how much energy they put into that game, because Leeds probably will need the points, it could be a pretty sapping game for you guys as well. But you've got the advantage of being at home. But I think you've got a day less to prepare for that North London derby, which, you never know, could be a slight factor. But I heard someone say earlier that it's probably one of the most important North London derbies in a good long time, because you've actually both got something to play for, which we haven't seen for a while. I think there was a few, probably going back a good 5 years or so, when you might have both been competing for top 4, but it seems to have been a while. So high pressure stuff right there. Should be a good one, whatever way it goes, and I'm sure you want it to go a certain way. Sorry, we're going to say something else on that one? Or?
I was just something that came to my mind, because obviously there's a lot of talk at the moment about Pochettino leaving PSG and Antonio Conte being linked with the job there. So again, that might just be an extra little thing thrown in there that maybe disrupts Spurs a little bit. Obviously, we'll wait to see how that actually turns out, because it would be very odd, because he's only obviously come in this season and then to suddenly go off to another job and whatever. But all that, again, I think that can only really help Arsenal if those talks do carry on.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of control, isn't it, that Kante wants. If he doesn't get the control or the transfers he wants, he's not very happy. I know he said something earlier in the season, didn't he, about the players not, I don't know, he just had a rant, didn't he, after the game, which was a slightly not positive to see, like if the changing room were looking at that, but we shall see. I was just thinking that Conte and Pochettino might just swap jobs. Pochettino might come back. But
basically, I mean, I would have kept Pochettino, to be honest, but that's a long time ago now.
I know. I think short-termism a lot of the time, isn't it, with Premier League management? Just they don't give people a chance after they've had a good season, because that was literally the season after they got to the Champions League final as well. So strange sometime owners. But anyhow, we'll move on from that. So I think we've probably touched about Jesus and the Sterling debacle in the City game, unless you want to add anything else onto that City-Watford 5-1.
No, I think just, trying to console myself with like we say, it's very rare for that to happen, particularly all to go through one player from an FPL perspective. So, I don't think anyone can feel too, or should feel too bad if they had assets in that game that didn't haul, because, I think decisions were all made for the right reasons, but just the wrong outcome.
Yeah. So then we're left with obviously a 0-0 that you enjoyed with Spurs going against Brentford. I don't think they had a shot on target again, did the Spurs? Definitely gone off the boil in attack again. I
Yeah, that was actually a very good game, to be honest. I thought Brentford played really well. I've noticed that quite recently, to be honest. I have seen a few of their games, and they do just play a lot more on the front foot. I think the fact that they've got Eriksen in that team as well is massively helping. I did think it was just quite funny seeing the fact that he would potentially put a big dent in their top four hopes. It was quite ironic, really. But I have to say I was really impressed with Brentford and the way they played that game, because especially when you think of teams playing against Tottenham, trying to play aggressively against them doesn't tend to work for people, because that's how they like to play. They like to sort of hit you on the counter. So that could have been a big sort of error, but the way they sort of applied themselves, the way they defended as well. I have to say I was really impressed with Brentford.
Yeah, I think over the course of the season they've played some decent football even without Eriksen. It's just they kind of got to that slump. I feel like a lot of the promoted teams have that, where they can start well, but they have a slump at some point in the season, and they've found their mojo back and doing quite well now. Obviously, the Eriksen signing has helped. I think there's needed that lift around January time, and that's worked quite well for them. But yeah,
and just that extra bit of sort of class and quality in the middle. Yeah, I think it's just something they were slightly lacking. It's still, in theory, you maybe argue Tony would, outside of Tony, the rest of the squad isn't. You wouldn't really say Premier League standard necessarily. Like, as a team, obviously they're performing at that level, but in terms of the players on paper, you'd say that quite a lot of them are very much Championship players. Not trying to be too disrespectful to them. That's certainly, that Eriksen signing seems to have massively improved and kind of just lifted the whole squad.
Yeah, I think they need that link-up play between the midfield and the striker, especially through the middle, like you mentioned. They often have the wing-backs getting forward, but not that threat through the middle, so it's definitely helped them there. Norwich, Newcastle, I think Norwich has gone at this point, aren't they? I don't see a lot. I wasn't surprised at all by that result. I know Norwich had quite a few good chances at the start, and they could have really actually got something from that, and then Newcastle just ran away with the game, but I don't think many of us has Joe Linton ready to get goals in there. So I've not got much to add on that one there, unless you have, Charlie. No. I think same again for Leicester and Villa. I don't think they've got a lot to play for. I think when we get to the second half, we might touch on both of them having a lot of fixtures to play, but I think that kind of result might sum up how some of their seasons are going to go the rest of the time. They haven't got a lot to play for. Although I did see an interesting thing saying that I think Villa aren't that far from actually relegation now, and it kind of shows that Gerrard hasn't really done a great job, which I would agree with. I think they're about 9 points off the relegation zone now, so they're actually a lot closer to relegation than fighting for anything else.
Yeah, they're just looking here. They're 8 points off.
Points,
They've played the same number of games as Everton, but one less than Watford or Norwich. I think a lot of those teams were around that area. So Villa and Leeds, particularly, they've just benefited from the fact that the teams below have been so much worse.
Yeah.
Not any other season, but some seasons where, we're seeing this kind of resurgence from Burnley. If we were seeing the same from the other teams, then I think Villa and Leeds would start to get very worried that they might slip into it.
Well, when we're mentioning Leeds, linking to the other 0-0, which was only yesterday, do you think Leeds can still get pulled into it? Because they haven't got a big gap now. It's a lot closer. Only 5 points, and Everton have got a game in hand.
I think it goes back to the point that I mentioned. I think the fact that particularly, Burnley do seem to be on a bit of an upward curve. They seem to be grinding out the results, but Everton just look like they're falling completely without a trace. They did kind of apply them, or not necessarily in the best way, but they certainly applied themselves in that derby. But I think that was because of the type of game it was. I don't think they can bring that level to other games. We've kind of already dismissed Watford and Norwich. Really, I don't think there's any hope for either of them. So. Yeah, like I say, I think Leeds are kind of safe by way of the teams below them being bad enough that they don't really need to worry about it.
I think they probably need another win or a bit more, because I still think Everton could win 2 games to put them in a bit of trouble. So I think it'll just be prepared. Come on.
With Everton's run of fixtures towards the end of the season, I'm not so sure Everton do pick up much.
I think they've still got Watford to play, which I'd say is probably the best chance of getting one. I'm pretty sure I think their double game week they've got later on. Yeah, they've got away at Watford and then home to Brentford and Crystal Palace. I'd say those three, and they've also got Leicester as well, who obviously will be in Europe. So I think there's a few points on offer. I think Leeds just need to be careful. Like, they still need to pick up a win also just to make sure of it. I think, and then they'll be a bit more comfortable because I think because looking at Leeds fixtures, the next 3 games they've got Man City, Arsenal, and Chelsea as well. So I'm not expecting them to get anything in the next 3 weeks. If Everton get a win, then it's a bit close for comfort, I would say. But I think they could still get dragged into it, but we'll see how it goes. So speaking of Everton, should we link that to Liverpool against Everton game? You kind of hinted that you don't think they could do it against anyone else, but I think, well, clearly we're robbed of a penalty in that game, Everton, and I think the game could have gone quite differently from that stage. And they put up a lot more fight than I was expecting, and Liverpool just got there in the end. What did you make of it?
Well, I think it was exactly that point. I think because of the nature of the type of game and the crowd and all that sort of thing, I think it kind of G'd them up more than we've seen in any other game. They were sort of putting themselves about a lot more. Gordon in particular was so good. I've not really caught on to how what kind of player he is or how good he is. But especially in that game, we kind of know Trent isn't necessarily the best defender as a right back, but he absolutely had him every time and was in behind constantly. And like you say, there were a couple of instances which were quite dicey about whether they would get something or someone would get sent off or he would win a penalty. But if they're doing anything, I think I see it through him. I don't really see Richarlison at the moment doing too much that I would be happy with. I think these kind of games aren't really good for him because he gets wound up at the best of times. So in a derby game like that, I think I was surprised he didn't end up with a red card somehow. But I think overall, I don't expect them to apply themselves like they did in this game in any of the future games. I think it was just because of the type of game this was that they raised their level a little bit. And ultimately, I don't think anyone would be surprised the fact they lost to Liverpool. I think any team in the league would accept that. And to only lose 2, I was probably expecting more, to be honest. So I think it sounds a bit patronising to say, but to only lose 2 to Liverpool is probably not the worst result, really, for them.
Too bad for the goal difference, at least. Because I was looking at goal difference as well, and Leeds have actually got a worse goal difference than Burnley and Everton, which could be crucial. Well, you don't seem to think so, but it could be, you never know. So Burnley, I feel like Burnley have been in relegation their whole lives, but finally got out of the relegation zone this season. Actually winning, would you make them favourites to stay up ahead of Everton now, or do you think it's too close to call still between the two?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, because Everton do have the game in hand on them and are 2 points behind, so in theory, if they won that game, then they would. But I don't. Yeah, exactly. I just don't see Everton picking up those points. And if I was going to put faith in either of them to grind out a result, it would be Burnley, no matter who the opponent is. If I had to place money on either of them, it would be Burnley. So I think there's just a bit more. I don't know, just a bit more kind of not tactical now, because that's the wrong way of saying it, but just that kind of ruggedness of pulling themselves through it within that Burnley team. Whereas Everton, I think of them trying to be a bit more expansive, which will lead to them being more exposed, which in the position they're in isn't really what you need. So, yeah, I think I would. Again, it's always easy to just tip the one that's already out of the relegation zone. But yeah, I think if I had to put my money on either of them, I would fancy Burnley on any given week more than I would Everton.
It's a big 2 games coming up for Burnley. I think they're away at Watford next game, which is huge. I think they need to win that, and then they've got Villa as well at home, which I think they could win. So 4 or 6 points from that, then they're in a great position going forward. Because, like you said, Everton aren't likely to get a huge amount of points, so Burnley need to get some on the board. There's been a 3rd goal in the Man City game as well. Who do you think scored? If you've not seen it, Charlie?
I have seen it.
Oh, you have seen
Kareem
it.
the Dream.
Kareem. Seen that City have got another injury in defence, which is far from ideal. John Stones has now gone off So
He was playing at right back as well.
I know, and Fernandinho's come on, so I'm not sure how that's going to line up now if they're putting Laporte or Diaz at fullback and Fernandinho at centre half. I'm not sure how they're going to be lining up there. They're literally down to the bare bones because Cancelo's suspended as well. It's a strange one because they've got Ake on the bench as well.
I think he still had a bit of a knock as well, so maybe they just didn't want to risk him really.
Yeah, unless they drop in Rodri maybe into the back line, I'm not sure. Yeah, not got many defenders left, City. That's all we can say. Do we want to mention anything about Chelsea, West Ham, or Brighton, Southampton, except for Ward-Prowse doing my head in? Not because he was in for a year last week and scores 2 of the goals the week after. Anything?
No, I think you covered it there.
Yeah, and well, a nice Alonso assist in that Chelsea game at least. We'll take that. And Jorginho just showing how bad he is at penalties as usual.
Enjoyable. Almost as bad as Fernandes, eh?
Yeah, full. Yeah, we'll skip over that one. I don't understand why Fernandes took that penalty as well. I didn't mention that. I don't understand why he was even on penalties, which just amazed me even more. So,
although I mean, to be fair, I have heard an interesting other angle was the fact that technically he beat Ramsdale because he made Ramsdale go the wrong way. He did it the opposite way. It's just he missed the actual shot. So in theory, he won that kind of duel, but just didn't follow through on it.
Yeah, I can't deal with like Ramsdale's reaction after that. I just think you need to have some kind of respect between players. Like,
nah, rubbish. That was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, but like you said, he was actually beaten. He's lucky he's got a post.
True, but you can always laugh. Ramsdale's always one to give a bit, so I was pleased with that, to be honest.
But it's the same, isn't it? Like everyone seems to hate Bruno, but they'd love to have him in the team. Kind of, it's that kind of rivalry, isn't it? But hey, right. I think that's kind of a midway point, so I can now annoy you by getting some questions wrong on this quiz. So we have to do it Arsenal themed, of course. So we're kind of going to do a higher and lower kind of format, I think inspired by how Sam used to do it on a previous podcast of his. So we're going to be focusing on Arsenal players and their Premier League appearances for Arsenal. So I'm going to give you a player and say how many appearances they've had. And then I'll give you another player. You have to say if it's higher or lower than that previous amount, and we'll do probably about 5 or so. Just as a little break up in the middle.
Sure.
Right. So we'll start with one of your goal scorers from the other day, Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka has made 183 appearances in the Premier League for Arsenal. Would you say Lacazette has higher or lower than Granit Xhaka?
Right. That's quite a tough one actually because
I thought I'd start with current players and then we'll go back.
Just thinking when they both came into the club, because Xhaka, for reasons completely unknown to a lot of Arsenal fans, tends to play a lot of games. But yeah. I don't think they came into the club too far apart from each other. So on that basis, I'm going to go with Xhaka as being high. So Lacazette, the second one, right? So Lacazette would be lower.
Yeah. I've actually got the dates they both signed as well. It's quite good. This little. So they both signed in August, but Granit Xhaka signed a year before.
Okay.
So he's made roughly, I think, 29 more. So Lacazette is 154 compared to 183 that Xhaka had. So that is correct. So now your starting point is Lacazette on 154 as your benchmark. And we're going to go back slightly and we're going to Olivier Giroud. Could you tell me if you think it's higher or lower than 154?
He must be higher. I think we signed him in early, maybe 2011-ish, something around that. So
2012.
It must be Giroud.
Signed him in 2012. He left in 2018.
Right.
And he made 180, which is 26 above, yes. So that is correct. Slightly more trickier one, I'd say, with this one. So you're on Olivier Giroud at 180. What about Mesut Ozil?
Okay. Well, they spent a lot of their time together. Because I just remember a lot of Ozil's chances got wasted by Giroud and were not actually scored by him. Just seemed to over and over that frustration. So it's gonna be close. Right, let's think about this. So yeah, I can't remember exactly I mean, I can remember the moment of us signing Ozil. I don't remember exactly which transfer window it was.
Yeah.
Only that it was like deadline day on the summer. But Ozil definitely left us after Giroud, because Giroud left to make way for Aubameyang. So on that basis, I think I'll go with Ozil as being higher.
Ozil signed in the summer of 2013.
Okay. What did we say Giroud was? 2012?
Yeah, so yeah, a year
but
later.
Ozil was later.
Yeah.
Ozil left later.
Yeah, he left in March 2020, which is about 2 years later than Giroud, so he had about one season more, Ozil, and he made 4 more appearances than Giroud, so you were correct with that one. So he's on 184. So how about Mesut Ozil? Would you say that Theo Walcott is higher or lower than Mesut Ozil?
He must be massively higher. He joined us when he was 16 years old. Must be Walcott higher.
Yep, easily on 270 appearances. So a nice big jump up there.
Long way. We signed. What was it? 2006 World Cup. He went. Was it World Cup or Euros? Can't remember that year. There must have been World Cup. Because he went with England away for the World Cup before he actually came to us, even though he was an Arsenal player.
Yeah, it says his first appearance was in the 19th of August 2006. So that would have been after that World Cup, yeah.
After the World Cup,
yeah. Yep. So 270 appearances for Theo Walcott. How about Thierry Henry?
Interesting. It's going to be there or thereabouts. I don't think... Very roughly, I'd say they probably, again, would have a similar number of years at the club, because Walcott joined so early and Thierry stayed later. And then he also came back as well. That's difficult. I don't know.
Can't accept that answer, I'm afraid.
Well, it's correct in that I don't know. I'm trying to think what I could use to make an educated guess here. I'm not sure I can differentiate them, because I think they must have stayed. It's pretty similar, like length of period at the club. I guess. I don't even know what I could use to separate them. I think I'm just going to have to go 50-50 and just take one. Let's say, again, because of the age that he joined us, I'm gonna go with Walcott. But honestly, I don't really know.
Well, that is correct. 12 appearances between them. 258 for Henry and 270 for Walcott. Got around that one. We'll probably do 2 more. So Henry is on 258. What about Patrick Vieira?
Pretty sure he's more. That's not much young, I think it's. I think he's more. Again, very similar periods that they played for the club. Vieira would have joined before Henry, but also would have left before. Yeah, I'm not sure, so I'm just going to go with my instinct, which was more.
The instinct's got you very far so far. Yeah, Vieira is correct.
Nice.
21 more than Henry, and he had more than Walcott.
Decent.
So it might be a more interesting one if I did Vieira against Walcott there.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have had a clue.
Yeah.
Have to work out.
Right, who should we go for? Yeah, so you're on Vieira at 279. So how about him compared to Dennis Bergkamp?
Bergkamp more, definitely. No, that for sure.
Okay, that's
I think
correct.
Bergkamp's over 300.
Yeah, 315.
Yeah.
Right, so your last one, Dennis Bergkamp at 315 compared to Martin Keown.
God. Martin Keown. I'm not sure. Again, like with a lot of these, I think they would have played similar periods for the club.
I can say the very similar periods. Would you like the dates?
Go on then. I guess that would probably help.
So Bergkamp, 20th of August 1995 till the 7th of May 2006. So that's probably 11, 12 years. Keown, Feb 1993 to the 15th of May 2004. So it's pretty much exactly the same time period, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why I gave you that one, because it doesn't really give much away.
Doesn't help, yeah.
I was like, I'll let you have that one.
Yeah. I don't know. Keown Bergkamp. I think. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'll go on the basis that Martin Keown is obviously a centre back. I feel like you're less likely to get rotated out of the team. I don't remember Bergkamp particularly getting rotated out of the team much anyway, but I'm not sure I've got anything else to go on. So I think I'll go Keown as having more than Bergkamp.
All in the last hurdle.
Oh, no.
How
much between?
5 appearances.
Oh.
I probably use that same logic, to be fair. I think that's more a modern thing, isn't it? Where the centre-back tends to play a lot more. Like Curly Bergkamp.
I mean, it's still true. I think, yeah, the forward players just did more running than the defenders do.
Mm-hmm. There's 2 players with more appearances than Bergkamp. Do you know who the 2 players are?
Well, Ray Parlour definitely. I think he's top.
Yeah.
Who would be the other one? Can I have the numbers just with that help?
What, the number of appearances? Or the dates? 325. So 8 less than Parlour and 10 more than Bergkamp.
That is a lot. Who would have played that many games for a club?
I think you need to use your positions here.
Okay.
So think of a position.
Oh, okay. I think you give it to me there.
Yeah.
I reckon it's David Seaman.
Don't worry, this is the part of the quiz. I'll just start asking you.
Yeah.
It is Seaman, yeah, that's correct. So Parlour, Seaman, Bergkamp, Keown and Lee Dixon are the top 5.
Nice.
All flashing back to that back line. Well, most of them, so Parlour not there. But yeah, just a bit of thinking for you in the middle there.
Nice, like it.
So we will move on to we'll focus on the next game week. We can touch on a few plans moving forward. Obviously, a lot of my decisions will be tempted by the game week 36 bench boost. So game week 35, few decent looking fixtures going forward. I think we'll start with a question of how are you looking for game week 35, Charlie, and then we'll talk about the fixtures afterwards. You got any immediate plans you're looking to make?
So at the moment, I'm waiting on injury news, and that will very much dictate how it goes. So Reece James, hopefully, we'll find out on Thursday when Chelsea play the next game, because it seemed a bit of a weird one. They didn't really seem to confirm exactly. For everything I read, at least, was all just kind of there's this ongoing thing, which there's not really any real problem, but whatever,
Yeah.
and it didn't really seem to be anything concrete. So, hoping to see what happens, and then hopefully he's available for the weekend.
He did train today with Rudiger.
Okay.
They're both in training, but obviously training's a bit different to match fitness, isn't it? So let's wait and see.
And it'll be interesting to see because if he plays that United game, maybe then doesn't play the weekend, which could be a bit frustrating. But I've also got him for the United game anyway. So either way, so him, also Saka as well. Again, similarly, it's quite confusing what Arteta said around him. So I don't think there's anything confirmed on him. So again, I'll just be waiting for press conferences to find out.
Did Saka come off in the game? Did he, or was it something after?
Trying to think. I think he came off. Yeah, I think he came. Yeah, he came off 73rd minute.
Okay.
I think Arteta said something about having a bit of a knock, but also already kind of going into the game with a bit of a niggle. So again, it doesn't sound anything too bad, but similarly, it can be the kind of thing that they might. Obviously, he's going to be basically he is our key player for the rest of the season. So if they feel like maybe it's the time, because I can't think of a game this season, to be honest, when he's been benched. So it may be time to just give him a rest, let Pepe have a run out, because as I say, particularly in that game, you don't want to take any risks really. But given it's West Ham, who, as we say, are going to be in the middle of those two games against in the Europa League, I think if there was going to be any game, maybe it would be this one that he would just get a little bit of a chance. But we'll see. Obviously, there'll be the end of the week press conferences first that we can look at. So providing those two, if those two are okay, then I probably will try and hold the transfer, because I should still be able to field 11 men with fixtures that I'll be happy with. If not, I've still got Digne on my bench. He's just kind of been sat there, as always seems to happen specifically with Digne. And who's obviously been injured and is going to be out for the rest of the season anyway. So he's going to go eventually. It's just haven't had time to get round to him yet. But the problem is I'm not sure exactly what I want to do with him, because I think in my ideal backline I'd be bringing him up to maybe one of the City backline or an Alonso or something like that. But I would just need that little bit extra funds to do that. So that might help with the 2 free transfers going into 36, which would be ideal. So yeah, I think if I can get away with it, I won't use the transfer, but it kind of depends how this injury news goes.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a week to roll if possible, given they've got a big double game week coming up. I'm currently on the fence. Well, ideally, I just want to be rolling. Currently going in there with triple City and triple Chelsea. I'm a bit unconvinced by the triple Chelsea. Thinking forward to that game week 36, should I say. I can see not everyone playing 2 fixtures in that, because they've got the FA Cup after that league fixture in 36, so I'm a bit considering what to do with those Chelsea lads, because I think probably my plan in 36 might be to get rid of Havertz and Sterling, and then it also gives me a lot of options kind of with value in there going into 36. Or I'm also potentially weighing up doing a transfer this week and getting Coutinho in for Norwich. But I've also got Watkins up front already, who'll be playing in that game, so it's probably Coutinho will roll, I think, is the current status. If Havertz or Mount picks up an injury on Thursday, it might just be an easy swap just to get rid of them or something. It's probably the thinking.
Yeah, just to add an extra thing as well. So one of the other things I was thinking about, outside the obvious of saving 2 free transfers to go into that double game week 36, but I was just looking at your team just now, looking at your wildcard to see that you've not got either a Son or Kane or Kulusevski, so no attacking Spurs assets. And obviously they've probably, of any of the doublers, got the worst 36 double.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of the main reason that I was initially, not the main reason, but one of the reasons why the 36 free hit initially made sense to me, was because I could keep them for their good fixtures and then take them out for that Liverpool-Arsenal double. But with the way I've now done it, I wonder if maybe I move someone like Kane on for maybe like an Nketiah or someone else.
Yeah.
And then that gives me, I can basically get to any player I want in the game. Which, that's kind of one of the other reasons why I'm quite looking to hold that transfer just to give me the flexibility, because I still want those both Kane and Son against Leicester in this week, because I think, like we said, that they'll be in Europa or the conference, whichever it is. And Leicester are a bad defence at the best times anyway. So I think it could give me some good flexibility going into that week. So yeah, interesting to see that you kind of went on a similar idea of not having the Spurs attack either.
Yeah, I think the key one when I was looking at it was like this 35 was the big one, like that I'd be scared of a Kane or a Son. But for 34 and the double in 36, I wasn't scared of them. So I was like, if I'm building towards 36, I just need to risk it for that one game. And I've just take a punt on someone else in that range. But like Sterling is at that price point, so if we get to like a 37, I could easily get a Son or someone back in. That was the thinking, because I think 37 and 38 are quite nice for Spurs as well. So I'm just wary of that. But it kind of depends on the moves I'm making 36. And again, where that City double falls, which is slightly annoying me at this point. If that City double was in 36, I'd just be absolutely loving it. I'd be very tempted to go like, well, probably haven't got the funds, might be a bit short for it. I was going to say Coutinho and KDB in for Sterling and Havertz, but I think Coutinho's not as cheap as you think he is, and Havertz isn't as expensive as you think he is, so it doesn't actually work when you think of it. I think you look at Havertz and you think he's so much more compared to Coutinho, but it's like less than $1 million difference, I think, which isn't ideal. Yes, I think it's Coutinho or bust for me. I think I'm hoping Nketiah plays every game, so I don't have to deal with that. Yeah, with these Chelsea guys as well, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Everton game is their rest game, because it's quite close to the Man United game. They're playing on the Thursday and then the Sunday. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of rotation in that Chelsea lineup. Maybe even Alonso gets rotated, but I guess it's not a big issue for me in 35. It's just 36. I don't want any rotation, so we'll wait and see on that one. Yeah, if Havertz wants to score a hat-trick against United but still lose 4-3, and then go off injured, that'll be like the ultimate outcome there.
But I thought you were hoping for finishing 8th.
Oh yeah.
You need United to lose anyway.
Yeah. It just feels wrong, doesn't it, saying you want your team to lose, but 3-3, okay. I'll take a 3-3. As long as Ronaldo doesn't score for you at the same time. I was saying this the other day as well, too. I think it was someone at Fest, to be fair, that if I was on a free hit or had the money to use in that striker position, I would have always had Ronaldo in this week, because I think he could score in both of those games. Obviously, he's proved it against Arsenal, and I can still see him quite easily scoring against Chelsea.
It was a late decision I made, to be honest, because my initial kind of teams I had Salah in, and really, because I also then kept Kane, I think it was. I can't actually remember in team. Let me have a quick look.
The free hit, you just have a love affair with it for 1 week, and then you just totally forget about it.
Yeah. No, so I didn't keep Kane. I brought in, because I had Sterling, and then I wanted the double up on the Chelsea mids as well, and Jota and stuff. So I only really had room for one of like Salah, Ronaldo, Kane. And initially my kind of free hit drafts had Salah in. And then I thought, well, it looked pretty certain that Jota was going to start that Liverpool game. It would be interesting just to go on a different way to other people, just to see what that would do. And yeah, like you say, it felt like I don't expect, or I didn't expect Man United to win either of these two games against Arsenal or Chelsea, but I would almost guarantee Ronaldo's getting at least one, if not two. So yeah, it wasn't in my thoughts originally, because I just don't like the idea of betting on Ronaldo over Salah. But with those fixtures and the alternative, because I don't think there's really an alternative to Ronaldo. Obviously, you could point at Bruno maybe, but Ronaldo, I think, is, in terms of FPL, ahead of Bruno now, and particularly with that penalty miss, I think you'd expect Ronaldo to be taking them from now on. So, I think it made sense to go with him in the end.
Yeah, and realistically, he should have 2 goals, because he should have been on that pen, like I said anyway, but... I could easily see him scoring against Chelsea. They've not looked great at the back, especially against your lot previously. So, and the fact that it's at Old Trafford, I think that gives him a bit more of I was going to say, what is it, Old Trafford? Then I was like, yeah, it definitely is Old Trafford. You know, when I said it, I was like, is it? Yeah, I was like, yeah, of course it is. But yeah, I'd fancy him to get a goal. Probably still won't win, but be pretty. I could see it being similar to that game against your lot. To be fair, being like quite an open game, because realistically, neither team's got anything to play for. Why don't you can just chuck some goals out there? Why not? Havertz can have a few, please. Because I was looking at your team, I didn't realise you would have James instead of Alonso in them. But
Yeah, that was another one. I did consider doing it as effectively the differential movers again. I don't know whether maybe the fact that I'd already gone Robertson over Trent and Jota over Salah and all these sorts of things, whether that maybe persuaded me not to. But also, I think the issue was obviously that he didn't get to play that game. I think if I was going to bet on either Alonso or James, assuming, and this is a big assumption, that they both start both games, I think I would still want to go with James because I feel like he has the higher potential, possibly, if they're both guaranteed to play the full games in both games. And I think it doesn't seem likely, but there was the potential for if Chelsea use a back four, Alonso may not be that left back because he's not really a left back. So I think that was maybe in the back of my mind, and the thought that James was going to be fine to play the two games, but obviously it didn't end up that way. But yeah, Alonso was considered for sure.
it's funny how you think of it in different ways. So you're thinking it that way, and then I'm looking at Alonso and I'm like, he's the only one who can play that position. Reece James has been playing centre back, and it's like, and you kind of know James isn't up to fitness because even Tuchel said that's why he's playing right centre back. So it's funny how we can twist the narrative depending on which one we end up going for, but it just points both sides that could have gone either way, because you could have easily just seen a scenario where they played that four at the back or whatever and James played, but it's the kind of luck that a lot of decisions rely on this season, isn't it, really? So it'll be typical this week that Havertz has two fixtures and he still gets outscored by Salah. That'll just be very typical of a former Havertz captaincy choice earlier in the season as well. But we shall see. So we touch on the fixtures that we've got to come this week. Is there any ones that really stand out to you that you're going to get your most points from this week?
It's just probably your typical one. So I think Liverpool against Newcastle. Newcastle have been a lot better recently, but it's Liverpool. There's no arguing that really. Yeah. I think any of the Liverpool assets should do well in that game. Obviously, we'll wait and see what happens tomorrow as well and how that might affect things going into the Newcastle game. The Man City lads against Leeds, but again, it will just be down to who you can guarantee to start. It'll be difficult, but Leeds, the way they play, it will just leave so much room for Man City. I think any one of their players, if you can get one that starts, they'll do well. Well, we said that against Watford, but that didn't turn out. But you know what I mean. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, yeah, like we said again, Spurs. I think at home to Leicester team that will be having played their Euro, or is it coming up this week or is it next week?
But
either way,
yeah,
okay. But focus on that anyway, and not really anything to play for in the league. So again, I fancy them to do well. I'm pretty much going to name all of the fixtures here. So Arsenal away to West Ham again. I think because West Ham will be concentrating more on that European fixture, and Arsenal need to win these games and need to keep winning. I think if Saka is confirmed fit and fine and it doesn't look like there's any issues, I think he is a potential captain option the way he's playing at the moment. If you do have a United asset, again, at home, well, I say that, I think only if I had Ronaldo, I would captain him. I don't think I'd captain any of the others, as per our just discussion we had a minute ago. So yeah, I think those are probably the key points. I guess maybe I've left out Chelsea away at Everton again because Everton have just been so poor. You probably are, like you say, taking a bit of a gamble on who's definitely going to get a start in that game because of the United game. So again, we'll wait and see what happens on Thursday and what happens off the back of that in terms of fitness and who's available. So I think, yeah, again, it's probably just a case of going with the big teams that still have things to play for. I think we're really starting to see, and we've seen this week, how the teams with nothing to play for really are a bit hit and miss, either with 0-0s or just kind of score draws of people that we're not likely to have in our team. So, yeah, I think it's just go for the big teams again.
Yeah, I think the key thing with that Leicester, we're talking about European competition, is that they have both legs of the semi-final either side of the Spurs game. So it's like the most logical one if they're going to rest their team that it's got to be in that one. Like you could
and
argue the other side, like the game after might be a bit different because they've got a bit of a run to the net to like if they got into the final, but it's just a big one, isn't it? In between both of the fixtures.
yeah, and even their first choice defence at the moment is struggling. So it's regardless of who they put out, I expect Spurs to at least score probably 2 goals in that game.
At least with the only Leicester asset I have being the goalkeeper, who's the one that is literally the only one who starts every single game, which is surprising. They haven't even rotated that. Watch it, they'll rotate him now just to annoy me. I think obviously you've made that good point about having teams with something to play for, but so then I think any other week, if we weren't using that logic, you basically look who are playing Norwich, and I'm looking at Villa with. I think this will be a question everyone would be probably thinking because Villa have got 5 fixtures in 3 game weeks. One again, the only single game week is against Norwich, and they've got 2 doubles back to back. Are they not tempting you in any way? That is literally what I'm. Like I said, it's Coutinho or nothing for me this week. I think. Do they not tempt you at all? The fact that they've got nothing to play for, is that what's putting you off with them?
I think it's a bit of everything. I think they do have the fixtures there if you wanted to go that way, but like you say, it's kind of Coutinho or nothing. I mean, none of their options. If you just, even if they were having something to play for, I guess maybe you could cite probably Watkins possibly, or Coutinho, but they don't have a huge wealth of genuine fantasy options that you feel confident about getting points even in good fixtures. So yeah, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on them despite the fixtures, and not even just because they probably are safe. I guess they will probably want to just get a few more wins just to secure that. But yeah, I think just because I don't really like any of their options just anyway. I do have Jacob Ramsey on my team, really because he's a budget option, not really because I expect him to do much or play most weeks. But that's as much as I need, really. I'm happy with that. I don't think I'd even go to Coutinho just because of the price point and what else you could get in that, especially because that midfield position is now so sacred with our FPL teams at the moment.
They're saying Coutinho or nothing for this game week. Don't you be slagging off my Ramsey and Matty Cash? They're FPL legends right there. I remember
maybe on past performances, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think the week I transferred in Ramsey, he scored and got an assist. I think it was like 12 or 14, I think, points he got. And obviously, Matty Cash highlighted the season. I think it was 20, was it 28 in the end he got? Some ridiculous number in that game week, that double game week. Literally, of all the times for him to start goal scoring form, that was the perfect time. But yeah, I'd only be bringing in Coutinho just because of the positions that I've got available, really. I was tempted to have Matty Cash in on a wild card, but ended up going to Laporte in hope that City get that double in 36. If that City double had been converted in 37, Matty Cash would have been in there instead of Laporte, no question. But we just have to wait and see on that one. There might be a cheeky punt in 36, getting rid of Emerson Royale and bringing in Matty Cash, but we'll see. The hero may return at some point. So I think you've rounded up literally every game for us there, Charlie. Just literally going through them. I don't think there's anything else that stands out for me. But in terms of captaincy, what are you eyeing up from this lot?
I've honestly no idea. And where that happens, I usually end up on Salah. So I think that's probably where I'll go. I think that makes the most sense as a safe choice. But yeah, like I say, I mean, if you're looking for something a bit different, I could be tempted by Saka. I don't know whether that's the Arsenal in me speaking or whether I think he is a genuine option because of the way he's playing, the points he's got lately, and what we've said a number of times now about West Ham being in Europe. Again, I think it's all these teams with something to play for again that I think have potential captaincy options if you want to go a bit away from Salah, because I think you could easily captain either Kane or Son. I probably wouldn't go for a Chelsea captain, like we said, just because the potential rotation and just the fact it's an away game as well just halts my decision a bit. I think if you had a City player that you were more you can't really guarantee definitely a start, but if you felt confident about one of them starting and wanted to go for it, then I think you could definitely captain one of them. But it's just about getting the right one. But yeah, I think I'll probably end up on Salah, to be honest, because that's the safe, boring pick, and that's where I end up when I don't really know what to do.
I'm glad you put City on the end there, because my current captain is a City player. Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, again, it's like what you said. Obviously, I've got no Spurs. I think if I had the Spurs asset, then Spurs would be the first one I'd be captaining. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Newcastle have been better recently. I don't fancy Chelsea with a tight turnaround. I'm not sure who's going to start in that game. Well, I don't trust Villa. I think Villa will score a few goals against Norwich, but am I really going to put a captaincy on Watkins? Not really. So then I got all the way round back to City, and I was like, Cancelo is not playing this game tonight because he's suspended. Cancelo, in my opinion, is the best option for my team outside of maybe Salah. So I currently think I'll go for Cancelo because there's no way he's not playing 90 minutes in that game, in my opinion. And Leeds can be quite open at times, but that's changed slightly with the new manager.
Would you consider Sterling over him, given he's not playing tonight, or at least he's on the bench? We'll wait to see if he comes back.
I think that's slightly too fruity for me, that one. He's in my team. It's
yeah, that's probably enough, isn't it?
It's it had gone through my mind, I'm not going to lie, but I think the disappointment when he'll probably come on for a 1 pointer, wouldn't he? I think the disappointment of a 1 pointer rather than getting guaranteed Cancelo, even if he doesn't get a return, maybe he gets the clean sheet. I think he's just got a few more routes to points, even if he has a bad game. So it's an interesting one to see. Literally, while I've been talking over the last minute or so, there's been 2 goals in the City game, if you've not seen.
I saw the 3-1. Has there been another?
Yeah, and then Vinicius Junior's made it 3-2. So it's an absolute cracker there, 3-2 to Man City. Yeah, within 2 minutes of that Foden one, Vinny Junior's got one back. It's just absolute saints. no defence back there. But yeah, interesting game and interesting captaincy choice. Yeah, I feel like there could be a few different options flying around. I think it's probably going to be Salah against Spurs, isn't it, really? I think it's going to be the main one. That's why I quite like going for the City, because I feel like a lot of people are going to have Spurs and they're going to put it on Spurs. I don't see a lot of people going for a City lad. You put Sterling back in my head now, though, so it's going to be... I don't know. Yeah, the thing I know about Cancelo is, like, unless something ridiculously happens, there's no way he's not starting that game.
Yeah, he'd have to be injured to not play, because they've got so many injuries already, and like you say, because of that suspension, he can't play tonight at all. So he's got to be in that starting lineup for sure.
But like, you wouldn't be surprised if you just saw like Grealish, Foden, and Jesus start from City. Would you? It wouldn't come as much of a shock. But if Cancelo didn't start at fullback, you'd be very surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we shall see. It's interesting that KDB seems to be getting a lot of minutes still, even after previously having those injury issues, because he played at the weekend as well, didn't he? And he's obviously playing tonight. So
yeah, I think Pep, and he definitely has reduced minutes. I think that's what it is. I think Pep's preferring starting him and take him off than to bench him and give him a rest, because he's just so important. I don't think there's as good as that City side is. There's no one else in that team that does what he does. So it's just so important to them, and because they're obviously still in that title fight, I think that's probably the way that it's going to go on. So, for example, the last 2 games he's had reduced minutes in both, but started both. So I think that's probably the way I see it going forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just looking at it now. Yeah, it's only a few minutes in the other games except for Watford, but obviously at 5-1 you've got a bit more comfort taking off your star man, haven't you, really? But yeah, it's just, I think he's slightly too expensive, I think, for me. That's why I went for Sterling, but would have worked out. Well, yeah, 1.3 more. 1.3 goes a long way when you're trying to get these cheap strikers in on a wild card. Anyone who can play 2 fixtures, as you said, we've been scrapping with Nketiah earlier on. So 1.3 million is too much for me. But I think that rounds us off quite nicely. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on for that game week, or anything going forward that you've got in mind?
No, all good, really.
Yeah, I think I've touched on 36 quite a bit when we've been talking about it anyway. Yeah, it's Coutinho or nothing. I'm not sure. That might be the new. That might be the title for this week's pod.
And to be honest, because whilst you were talking about, we both said it. We both said Coutinho or nothing, but I was looking at his last, I think, 5 returns, and he's not got anything. It's been like 3-3 to 3-3 or something, or a couple more twos in there. So it's not like he's on a necessarily good form. But I guess it's like you say, it's just down to fixtures and him probably being the best attacking asset in that team.
Yeah, but they like to say fixtures breed form, don't they? And I think if you looked at where he's got his hauls, like he's got away to Southampton, at home to away to Leeds, at home to Southampton, home to Leeds, quite open teams. Well, I say that, and then the Watford where he's got 2 pointers, so you can totally just ignore me at that point. But I think it was that big, yeah. But the double game week 28, wasn't he? Because that Southampton and Leeds was in the same game week, so got 23 points in the double game week. So that's what everyone is hoping for in a double game week, and I think that's where the hope might kill me. But they have had quite a difficult run recently, but you never know. And it's just, like I said, there's 5 fixtures in 3 weeks that tempts you in as well, and really that is the most attacking player outside of maybe a Watkins or a Danny Ings if he plays, but yeah, we'll see. Currently, I'm sticking with it, but we'll see what happens on Thursday with Chelsea. If there's any kind of indication of maybe like if Havertz comes off early and I'm more confident that he's going to play the Everton game or something like that. But one to look out for. It's a bit easier for us to do a pod midweek this time because there's only one game. Last time we was in a bit of trouble, so we shall see. But I think that's us done for today. And thank you again, Charlie. We should be back, I believe, next Wednesday. We might have a full complement depending on how it falls for Sam, because Liverpool on Tuesday, aren't they, next week? But we'll definitely be here. And it falls quite nicely as it's just a normal game week this week. It's actually 10 fixtures, just 1 game each. What's going on? Not used to this. It feels like I've not had it in a while. But yeah, thank you again, and thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you again next week. Have a great rest of your evening.